The 1755 Lisbon earthquake. Assassin's Creed Rogue. Portugal's capital was virtually destroyed by a massive earthquake in 1755, a natural disaster that claimed up to 50,000 lives, according to the highest estimates. You experience the quake firsthand at the beginning of Assassin's Creed Rogue. It was triggered by Shay retrieving a piece of Eden from a vault beneath the city and is the precipitating incident that causes Shay to leave the assassins. God had nothing to do with it. He decides that no organization that allows so many lives to be lost just for the sake of another ISU relic worth its time and effects is the Templar. The earthquake of Lisbon destroyed the streets and thousands of buildings and is reenacted in one of the best and most tragic platform sections of the franchise. The Battle of Chippenham. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. One of the main antagonists of AC Valhalla is Alfred of Wessex, better known as Alfred the Great, one of the most famous kings of England. Although history generally remembers Alfred the Great in a positive light, the name Valhalla took on a different perspective, and this is particularly evident in his vision of the Battle of Chippenham. They came out of all the houses. This was a great battle between the Anglo-Saxons and the invading peoples. Saxons and the invading Vikings won, in which the Vikings were finally victorious and took control of the whole region for some time. Aveir and the Raven clan joined forces with the Great Pagan Army, which was the real army involved in the conflict, and took Wessex. Although it was only supposed to be theirs for a few months, the city is ours. Essex will follow the Borgia papacy. Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. How could I better celebrate my victories? One of the most notorious noble families to have ever lived, the Borgias, have certainly been portrayed as villains throughout history, even though they appear in the Ezio trilogy. Cesare Borgia is the main antagonist of the Brotherhood, while his father Rodrigo takes control of the Vatican and becomes Pope Alexander VI. Why didn't you stop them? As if I could. It wasn't my decision to attack Monterigin, it was yours. Today, it's not clear how much about the Borgias is true and how much slander was invented by their rivals in European high society. But they did exist and also had control of Italy for a time. Being Spanish, they weren't very popular in Italy, and that is definitely something the games get right, as Ezio spends his time trying to oust them from power. It's over. Rodrigo, lay down your arms and I'll see to it that the end comes gently. The Third Crusade. Assassin's Creed. You don't know what you're getting into. Both the Assassin Brotherhood and the Templar Knights have their origins in the Crusades, although both groups have been around much longer, as evidenced by the lore of later games that became the Hidden Ones and the Order of the Ancients. But even the first game dealt with the Crusades and their atrocities, pitting Altair against many of the most important figures of the Holy Land, such as Richard Lionheart. No vengeful justice, and when you're not eavesdropping on conversations in one of the three capitals, you're riding through war-torn no man's land trying to get from one side to the other without being killed by a bloodthirsty crusader. So be it. The Plague of Athens. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. What's going on? Because the plague spread and we couldn't keep up with the bodies the plague spread, we had to intervene in 430 BC. And a few years later Athens was hit by a devastating plague that killed tens of thousands of people. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey you experience the horrors of the plague outbreak. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey you experience the horrors of the plague outbreak with a great color filter on your screen, including the death of Athenian leader Pericles. At least I'm alive, although I can't say the same for my city. But Assassin's Creed still can't shed any light on one of history's greatest mysteries. What was the disease that caused the devastating plague? It could have been the Black Death, but there are also theories that it could have been anything from measles to Ebola, and some medical evidence points to that. It could even have been typhoid. There is a blood fever. They say it's a curse and they need help from the gods. Blackbeard's death. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Unfortunately, there is nothing to be found in this location, but there are a few racks in recent years that haven't been cleaned of crabs and coral. Many of the most notorious pirates in history in Black Flag, including in Bonnie Mary Reed, Black Bard, and of course Blackbeard himself, perhaps the most notorious of them all. But just as in real life Blackbeard met an untimely and cruel end, he was killed in a surprise attack planned by Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy, who pursued him relentlessly for some time. After his death, Blackbeard's head was cut off and taken as a trophy by Maynard to claim a bounty placed on his head in Black Flag. He has more of a heroic death as he's one of Kenway's allies, but it's still relatively true to life. You're hanged in Sundroid, just like the one in Boston. The Kings claim to part the Iden of March. Assassin's Creed Origins. The people love you, Caesar. You're a god. The Senate won't bow so easily. The Parliament of Cackling Hands. Another high-profile death aimed at recreating history to the letter came in Assassin's Creed Origins, where Julius Caesar is assassinated by his fellow members of the Roman Senate for trying to make himself Emperor of Rome. Roman emperors existed, of course, but only after Caesar was already dead, which is why the other politicians didn't like him becoming dictator. If you ally yourself with my sister, I will kill every last Roman in Alexandria. You had already had many encounters with Caesar by this time, including his affair with Cleopatra. But it was certainly a dramatic moment to see his end. He was brutally stabbed to death in broad daylight by a dozen men who were allegedly members of the assassins in play. To my child storming the Bastille. Assassin's Creed Unity. Where am I? Music. The French Revolution officially began on July 14, 1789, and is still celebrated every year in modern France's Bastille Day. The Bastille, a large and oppressive prison in Paris, had existed for hundreds of years and was initially a fortress, but although it was capable of repelling British invasions, it eventually fell to the revolutionary group that stormed the prison and freed the captives, and one of those captives was, of course, Arnold Dorian, who would soon become an assassin. But the storming of the Bastille remains one of the most important political moments in French history, leading to the founding of the First French Republic and the advent of the Revolution. The Boston Tea Party. Assassin's Creed 3. The Sons of Liberty may send an embassy to England and you rob William Johnson of his funding. Your village will be saved. In 1773, American radicals launched a protest against the British colonial masters who had levied higher taxes on tea, not sold by the East India Company. Outraged by British taxation, the Sons of Liberty took large quantities of the East India Company's tea and dumped it into Boston Harbor. We must keep these bastards in check. We must keep these bastards in check, while the key is sunk in Assassin's Creed 3. This has the secondary goal of financially damaging the Templars. That's why it's Connor who has the honor of carrying the tea and dumping it in the sea. It's still an important part of Boston's history and one of the first events of the successful American Revolution. Connor hit the Brits where it hurts, right in the teabag. Jack the Ripper's killing spree. Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Stop. You want me, Jack? Come and kill me. The most notorious serial killer in history, Jack the Ripper, was famously never caught or held accountable for his violent crimes. Syndicate is set largely in the 1860s, which left room for an entire DLC set in the unforgiving winter of 1888, when the Ripper was at large. Evie Fry returns from abroad and is hired by Aberlin to unmask the Ripper, despite everyone's belief that her brother Jacob is responsible. Only you know who the Ripper is, but you can't tell a living soul because it would destroy you and the assassins. Of course, you can't play a game in Victorian London without Jack the Ripper being in it, and an entire expansion devotes the weight to these gruesome crimes they deserve and saves them from becoming another Syndicate side mission. Penny Dreadful. Rest in peace now, Jack, you and your twisted henchmen. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, there is more where that came from. You